Good evening. This is August the 13th meeting of the Planning Commission, and we'll start with the roll call. Judy, if you'd call.
All right, Stiles.
Here.
Greene.
Here.
Zaremski.
Here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Osterholm.
Here.
Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Meg Leatherman.
I always struggle between here and present.
I thought it worked well.
Yeah, good. Okay, the agenda. Any additions to the agenda? Okay, if not, then we will look at our minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, changes, additions? It's a fairly short minutes. And if not, do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Great, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. So communications, we have one communication, which is from Don and Christine Beard, and it's about, they're the owners of the Trail Tavern, and they do not want to see more than one food truck in the lot behind King House. They feel that the additional traffic it would generate, and that also they're the owner of 2 brick-and-mortar restaurants, and they think we have too many food trucks in town as it is, so they don't favor putting another food truck there. So that was our one communication. And anything else, Judy, that you're aware of? Nope. Okay. Then we'll go to our council and committee reports. Gary, do you have anything from Active Transportation?
No report.
Okay, great. Council, Gavin, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I have here what Judy shared with me, which is that council's last meeting was July the 15th, so we typically take off the first meeting in August, so it's been a while since the last meeting. And relevant to Planning Commission, there was discussion on council regarding a desire to pursue the possibility of obtaining land for the purpose of securing a developer who can apply for low-income housing tax credit funding. So that sort of process continues. Council members informally agreed to pay for legal costs necessary for exploring the possibility of extricating the proposed land from its encumbrance as part of the school district's collateral for loans being used to fund renovation and construction of school facilities. I guess I'm assuming that most of y'all are following this closely enough that gobbledygook of words made general sense. I'd be happy to explain it. That's not Judy's fault. It's gobbledygook. It's complicated.
This is the soccer field plan?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to talk about more. The information gathering is still in process, and an update will be provided at Council's August the 19th meeting. And then the village is continuing to advertise for 2 alternate positions for Planning Commission. And the only other thing that Judy didn't put in here that I'll mention is that I expect that at some point we're going to start hearing about things related to the development that I think everybody probably saw was in the paper, and related to some of the Antioch land. There's been no. I think it's true. There has been no sort of formal council communication about it. So I'm just basically giving you the heads up that I'm expecting it, but I don't have any. I mean, honestly, what was in the paper is as much. There's nothing else that's in writing, essentially, that we've received, to my knowledge. So I just figured I'd give you a heads up.
So I guess I'd like to just pose a question, because I think that's really exciting for our community, potentially on 3 sites, to have more housing. And I think it's also very exciting for Antioch, because I'm sure they really need the money. So that's great for our community. And to have the buildings used in a way that really benefits our community. And I'm wondering, is there any way that we could have a little part of that the village could do to be affordable?
If
that's a question for me, I guess.
That goes to you, baby.
Sure, Gavin, take it.
I don't know the answer to that. I certainly understand the sentiment. I guess the short version is I think we're about to start talking about this in sort of a formal context, and if folks have ideas, I think, I don't know. From my perspective, the newspaper was sort of the beginning of a formal, of a public conversation that has not yet made its way to council, at least, or here, I guess.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Meg?
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of backing up just a little bit, there's also the Housing Committee reports on here, and I was just going to say...
And we'll do that next.
Yeah. I was going to say that the Housing Committee has kind of been put to the side for now as being restructured and considered because we have various other housing efforts that are going on and we're dedicating time to. And in the meantime, Johnny's communicating with the council directly, and then I will be reporting on the housing updates at this meeting. So maybe we could change the agenda item to housing updates. And then I was going to give then after that an overview of the housing projects I'm aware of and more information on where they're at.
So do you have any thoughts on, is there any way that we can have a portion of the new housing be affordable?
Yeah, so Antioch has basically, with the Windsor companies, 3 potential projects that are kind of under consideration right now. I think everyone's aware of one of them being the old student union. Windsor has actually officially purchased, and the other 2 are the Kettering building and the Sontag Felds building. Those are still under contract with them, but not officially sold to Windsor, so there's more discussion to be had, I think, between Antioch and Windsor on that. And then, but going back to the student union building, we did have a work session with staff and the Windsor company and our attorneys, and Gavin was present, and we had so initial work session, I guess, to outline the potential planning process and potentially look at an economic development tool called TIF. And we after that, emailed a little bit with them, and they are preparing right now some conceptual plans. I have not seen any of them, and thinking that they might be able to submit the preliminary PUD application by the end of this month, potentially even the 20th, so that potentially they could be at a work session with the Planning Commission in September.
And aren't they going to have that land rezoned? Right now it's zoned for education.
Correct. The preliminary PUD is also a rezone to PUD. It's a rezone process at the same time, and as that, there is the potential that affordable units could be included in the PUD.
Were they open to that, do you think?
They were open to that. We had initial discussion about it, and when we left it, they're looking into it more. I provided to them the definitions of affordable in our code because they were asking about that.
Sure.
And yeah.
Sure. Good.
And so the PUD you're talking about would be just for that one specific parcel?
Correct.
Yeah.
This is just for the one with the old student union building on it. And then, like I said, the other 2, they have said that they're looking at residential for those and keeping those existing buildings. The student union one, the potential is to have it demoed. And then they're saying maybe 120 units there.
Oh, on that one site. I thought the 120 were everything
No,
together.
that one
Wow.
site.
That'd be enormous.
And I was initially thinking that too. I've visited the site now since then twice. I've walked it with Jerry Papanino. Papania. And him and Jerry and I have communicated quite a bit over the last week or 2 about the site. He's very familiar with it from living there for a long time, and it is a very dilapidated building. I mean, it is very run down, and it actually, the property itself is much larger when you visit it in person than it seems, especially on like an aerial. Because I first looked at an aerial, I was like, wow, really? But when you're there and you walk it, it does seem like it potential for more
There was a
units.
lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. So anyways, then the other 2 buildings, it's still kind of been more hypothetical, not as concrete, but is residential and keeping those buildings and renovating them, which is the piece that I really like too, because of like what along the lines of what Susan said, which is like, those are really neat, cool beautiful,
They are. They're
somewhat
lovely
historic buildings that hopefully, we can renovate into something that will keep a piece of Antioch, too.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Any other questions for Meg about this? Okay, we'll keep pushing for that affordable housing piece. Okay, and the Housing Committee, I know I had a email for Johnny that it was now going to be a staff committee, and if you are in need of other people, you'll ask them. So do you have any report from the Housing Committee?
Yeah, no, just that we haven't been meeting, and that Johnny is imagining like restructuring it if we do bring it back together at all in the future. So right now it's not something that's going forward, and we're just focusing on the existing housing projects.
Okay.
So I'll just jump in on that front real quick, just to say that there's gonna, we have to figure this out. Like, there are some conversations to be had. I think most of you all are probably familiar that the Housing Committee in its current form came out of a work session about housing that council did,
Council.
I don't know, a year and some
It's 2
change?
years ago in February.
2 years ago in February. And so then it took some time to get started, and then we had some, fits and starts as there've been changes. So I think what Meg said is where we are right now, and I think it raises sort of the question of how do we approach housing as a council and staff, essentially. And so I think I would just say that there's an open question right now that's not, there's like some communication that's going to happen around it.
And part of that committee, because I attended that meeting as an observer, really focused on the village-owned land and developing it for affordable housing. In fact, what came out of that meeting, they wanted an RFP by the summer for development. Of course, that never happened, but that was the focus of looking at affordable housing for the community.
All right. I think that's accurate. Yeah, I appreciate that. A couple other housing efforts I just wanted to report on. I mean, I'm planning on reporting here about it in the meantime until it's figured out, so that at least the Planning Commission, as kind of my more responsible body, is aware of it, what's going on. Spring Meadows, 90-home residential subdivision. They have, in Phase 1, 56, which we approved the final plat for, and so did the council. They've sold 20 homes. They have building permits for 29. All the parks are completed. And the Phase 2 final plat is expected to be coming to the Planning Commission in September, at the September meeting.
And it will come to the Planning Commission. Okay.
I believe so. Didn't the last one? Yeah, it went to both, I think.
It doesn't go to
Council?
Council.
Yeah, okay. So it comes here. And then, like I think Gavin alluded to, there's the affordable housing project, also being referred to as the LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit, on the corner of Enon and Dayton on school property. There's the school right now is moving forward, preparing a survey to carve off 3.6 acres with a minor subdivision application that I'll review at the staff level, but then I'll have to bring to the Planning Commission to sign off on per the code. And then they also are moving forward with their rezone application. So these are things that I've been working with them on behind the scenes a little bit to get ready. And the rezone, they'd like to have that on the September Planning Commission meeting.
Is that planning, or was that a variance they're asking for?
They're asking for a rezone, to rezone it to RC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was discussion that it might go faster if they did a variance.
Yeah. And then at the same time, I think it's going to be at August 19th council, there's a intergovernmental agreement is being entered and worked on between the school district and the council to outline kind of all these components, but it'll be at council the 19th, and then once that's formalized, then it'll be good for the September 10th meeting, because it basically says they'll have the authority to work with the school district, and the council has the proper authority to work on all this stuff together. And also kind of outline some of the fees, who's responsible for some of the fees and stuff. And then I think that the intergovernmental agreement, the rezone, the subdivision application, all kind of starting to be on the rezone starting in September, and then it'll have to go to council as well.
Okay. And I know they had like encumbrances on the land. Is that working out, getting that resolved?
Yeah, it seems like there's a good sense from our attorney that they're going to be able to be lifted, but the actual steps to do that hasn't happened yet,
Okay.
so they're still working towards that.
Okay, great.
Will they replace the soccer field? Will they?
Yes, and that piece I'm not as certain on right now, on like where that's going to be and what, but there is discussions about that being replaced.
That is a separate, that is.
Yeah, if I understood council, they're just working on the land. They're not, right now, we're not, there's nothing being promised that the council's going to replace the land of the villages. It's more like on the schools right now, I
Yes,
believe,
it's on
from the
the
last
school.
meeting.
It's a complicated project all around because there's different pieces of it that are different responsibilities, and, you know, it's this group deals with or that group.
Yeah, I think it is good to keep the soccer field, imagining that as like the school's responsibility, and imagining like eventually that the property, 3.6 acres, will be sold to the village, and then we would then probably do like a RFP or RFQ to get a developer to develop it as low-income housing tax credit.
My sense too is the, so the rezoning of that property is sort of a standalone project, just rezoning it. And many of the other aspects of the overall concept all have lots of contingencies to them. And so ultimately, various things can work out or not work out, but the rezoning can occur independently up front, and it just gets, you know, it won't affect anything.
Right. If
the
other
stuff
things
doesn't
fall
happen.
aside, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then the Cascades, just an update on that one. The PUD process is complete, as you know, formalizing of that. The PUD agreement was signed by all parties as of, I believe, late last week. The building permits have made it through the building permit process, and we just need to get some final fees paid for by Home Inc. or their architects. And then there are still some funding concerns on Home Inc.'s side, but if they can get those solved, they're going to be starting construction in the fall.
That's the thing behind the fire station?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was imagining Cascades, thinking probably not a good place for housing.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you know much about the village-owned property. This are the things that Johnny wanted me to report on, so that's why. The village-owned property on Corey Street has been talked about for housing.
Where on Corey Street is Village?
By the project.
By the Green
President Corey.
Greene Met President.
Yeah, it's next to the housing owned by Greene Metropolitan Housing
The
Authority.
vultures used to hang out there a lot.
Like, oh, wow.
We were just
yeah,
kids.
yeah.
That was kind of mean to
There's
call
some
us.
trees and,
Oh, I thought you meant real vultures.
no, real
No, real vultures.
real vultures.
Yeah. Turkey vultures.
Turkey,
Turkey vultures?
yeah. I got it.
Anyways,
That's where I used to run around.
there's been some like deed questions. It's shown as ownership by Greene Met right now, and apparently that Amy, our attorney, has been looking into it, and the Greene Met board is going to be talking about it in September. And that's really all that I know. I don't know much more, but I think there's some kind of potential, lately it's supposed to go back to the village after so much time, and maybe
was.
that's, okay.
That's the way that I remember, that after, I can't remember, it was 30, 40 years, it was supposed to revert back to the village.
And that's really the first step, is to figure that out before we can even talk to anyone or do anything with it anyways. So there's nothing else beyond that going on, like there's no, but.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Okay,
it.
sounds like a lot. Great.
That's great, Meg. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess, so that, going back to the like housing committee piece, you can kind of get a sense that we have one full-time person on staff who works on all of these things, plus
Building permits, that's
everything else, right? Zoning and planning related. And so I think that's part of where we're trying to figure out, like, and we had a new village manager, we have new, so there's all these sort of moving parts, and we're trying to figure out how do we navigate all these moving parts. So that's so we're just letting folks know that's the dynamics.
And I'm, in terms of workload relating to this too, I'm also aware of there's other projects that have been conceptualized. That
There's more than this, too.
Yeah, there's more, because I know about some that are being conceptualized and have engaged you in quite a bit in terms of, how to work this and that and the other thing. So there's a lot of ideas floating around right now. Yeah.
Okay, let's
Exciting time to be here and be on the planning commission. So if you know someone, get them to volunteer.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's move on to our portion that says citizens' comments. And this is where citizens can comment on anything that is we're not going to have a public hearing on. We're going to have a public hearing on the King's House LTD. So are there any citizens' comments? If not, then we will move on. And we'll go to our conditional use application. Meg, would you like to talk about it?
Sure. All right. Yes, this is a conditional use application for a food truck at the King's Yard, which is located at 232 Xenia Avenue. The property is zoned B1, and food trucks are conditional use in the zone. Asia White, who is here tonight in front of us, is the applicant and food truck owner. Christy Comerford is the property owner, but Asia White is here tonight to represent the application and has received authorization from the owner to submit the application and represent it. Adjoining property owners were mailed a notice on July 30th, 2024. Signs were posted on the property on August 1st, 2024, and a notice was published in the paper on August 2nd, 2024. So Ms. White would like to operate a food truck called Super Chow in the rear of the King's Yard building. And there is already a food truck there and operating called Miguel's Tacos, and it's owned by Miguel Espinoza. Miguel received approval of the food truck in 2017. Christy Comerford is kind of remote. She's living in Colorado right now, but I have had communications several times. I've communicated with her on the phone and via email multiple times. And so some of the things in the staff report reflect like clarifications from those conversations, and I'll just highlight some of them. The owner of the building, Christy Comerford, she's presently making improvements to the existing building. The rear part of the structure, like a rear room, is being remodeled with a public restroom and indoor seating. So just to be clear, no kitchen is authorized inside the structure there. It's just a public restroom and indoor seating. And I believe Miguel is kind of overseeing that and responsible for that. But the building permits have been approved and construction is still underway, so it's not completely done. But the restrooms and the indoor seating space would be available for the Super Chow customers. And there also is outdoor seating that exists right now, and Super Chow will be located around there. It is a bit disjointed back there and uneven, I will say, like from my analysis of it. I just wanted to point that out. But I mean, it seems heavily used, lots of customers. But there has been talk about improving it, making it look nicer, and also like maybe leveling it a little bit. But I don't know how. I haven't seen any plans or any concepts or anything.
That would be the owner's responsibility.
That would be the owner. Yes. However, Miguel has been put in charge by Christie to maintain it and to do any work for her. So should Asia want to make any changes or do anything, she's going to have to go through Miguel. So he's kind of like the representative there on site.
Are there going to be additional tables for?
I don't think so. I think what's there is going to be.
Because there aren't that many. There's like.
Asia may know. We can ask her when she comes up.
Yeah, because I eat there sometimes at Miguel's.
Yeah. The application, so that's basically all I have. The application complies with the standards outlined in the code, and I recommend approval and just request that, should you approve it, that you include the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report.
Okay. And is the location going to be just right next to Miguel's, or is it going to be?
I think it's going to be, I would say it's probably about because I saw it where it was before, because it was there and then she moved it off because she didn't have approval. I think it's probably about 30 feet away from it,
And
but I'm not the best.
And I guess
at-
when
maybe
I
not-
was-
I mean, not 30, 20.
when I was looking through the stuff, when Miguel's was was it approved as a sole food truck, or was it just that there might be additional food trucks?
It was just one food truck that was approved, yeah. And specifically, it had his, but it could have, rowing the code, I believe it could have been another food truck that went in there if he wasn't there, but it was only for one.
Okay.
I have some questions too along these lines. So when you approve something, it's really, the approval is for the quantity of food trucks, and you approve a food truck, and it can roll in terms of being another food truck take its place, right?
I mean, most of the time, but I will say, like, it kind of varies by application, so it is hard to generalize, especially with conditional uses and anything in planning. As much as we like to be consistent, I'm really big about treating everyone equally and being consistent. It's still, there's so much that can happen at the planning commission level at a conditional use. With, you guys, we can add conditions or modify things based on site conditions that it's hard to just say for sure. And I haven't gone through and done like a really detailed analysis of every food truck approval. I do know there are other approvals, and some of them roll. Like, I think the one at, I always say their name wrong.
The one at the hotel we approved for a food truck in general.
Right.
Miguel's
That's
was
recent.
approved for Miguel's specifically.
Well, and
The
that,
one at, I think it's 105 Cliff Street, the address, but I don't know the name, everyone calls it. The 108 Cliff Street, Mills Park, or Mills,
Oh, yes. Millworks.
Millworks.
Oh,
That one, I think they can have multiple and change in and out. I don't know how many though. And same with
That's what I'm
same with
wondering.
Nippers. I believe Nippers can have more too. But like I said, I don't know. I don't have the reports with me in front of me. So.
well, Miguel's was a unique situation because he was operating, realized he needed the conditional use. So it was specifically, I am coming so that I can get permission to do the thing that I was doing. And it was simply, okay, we're giving you permission to do the thing that you were doing. It wasn't to exclude anything further. It was simply, that's the request, we're granting the request.
Yes.
I'm breaking it down very simply, but it wasn't, we're only allowing one. It was simply, this is one person asking for one thing, so that was the consideration.
Okay.
So, I'm not like thinking one way or the other, but I was reading through this thing. So you say in here, this number C here, the proposed use is compatible with the character of the general vicinity, and you have this thing that the proposed mobile food vending is compatible with the character of the general vicinity, since there's another food truck that it's already there. And so I'm struggling with this a little bit in that, so it's like we wanted, like when we talked about the rental things, the transient guest lodging, we said 500 feet because we didn't want them concentrated, and we thought that just having people there was going to change the character of the neighborhood. And I'm not totally convinced about that, but that was what we went through. And so this thing about having two food trucks, I think, right now we have all the food trucks, they're all like isolated little spots. There's probably almost no place where you can see from one food truck to another food truck. Maybe from the one at the hotel, you might be able to see the one at Nippers, but like they're all spread out. Now, when you have two food trucks, is this actually changing the way, the character of this thing? It's like, I don't have a good way of explaining it, but I'd like to really understand whether going from one food truck to two food trucks changes the character, because that was one of the things. So just because there's one there doesn't necessarily mean that it's compatible. I mean, and we say, like, we talk about what's the thing? The comprehensive land use plan, and in there it talks about maintaining the character of Yellow Springs as a small sustainable village. So we have in there that we want to maintain this character. So if we say that one food truck is okay, and then we say two food trucks is okay, well, what about three? Or four? I mean, I don't know what the answer is on this. But I'm just really concerned. I just remember reading a book where somebody had two ping pong tables in their basement, and that was like it was like one seems fine, but now two, why do you need two? It becomes it's like where the quantity affects the quality of the thing. So is 2 food trucks qualitatively different than 1 food truck? And what does that do into the character of that little spot there? So I'm interested in digging into that question. I don't have nothing against you or food trucks or anything. But I mean, what we've been asked to do is, this whole thing is about maintaining the character of the village to kind of stay the same. And if we have a spot where you have 2 food trucks, is it still staying the same?
Now, I guess I'm going to say the other side is that the downtown area is where we have a number of restaurants. And so in a lot of ways, it seems appropriate to have several food trucks, because this is where lots of people from out of town, tourists, town people, come to eat. And it gives them more choices. And in fact, I think sometimes when you have more choices, you will in fact get more people. Because people will go, okay, if I can't eat here, I can eat there. I know my husband and I and our grandkids have gone for Miguel's, and it was closed. If there was another food truck and it would have been open, we probably would have then eaten
What are you
there.
doing now? Doesn't he close at 10 o'clock at night? What are you and your grandkids doing out at 10 o'clock at night?
No, it was a day of the week, and we weren't there, or maybe we were there early. There was, we were there at an appropriate time.
Okay. All right.
But I'm just saying, the idea of having, that's not unusual to have your downtown area with more restaurants, more places
and I
to
think
eat.
there are economic studies about that. The clustering
Yeah.
businesses that are the same together actually doesn't, it creates more competition, and
Yes.
people go to that area. The Diamond District or the Electronic District in
Yeah.
New York City is, they're all there together and people go there.
Yeah.
Well, it'd probably be good to hear from the applicant.
Okay.
Does Gary, you want to say
Yeah.
something before we hear?
So, but I do want to point, those are interesting points, but I want to point out too that no one ever is concerned about having restaurants too close to one another. That's not why would, it's the same idea of, in my mind, as, worried about having food trucks too close to one another. There's a problem with restaurants being too close to one another. And also want to point out that although the moving forward plan is sort of fell apart, the business that was going to be put into the old lumberyard, in a sense, was functionally going to be functionally be as if it was a collection of 6 or 8 or 10 food trucks, all in one spot in terms of what they, what it was going to accomplish, and so, we've already, but still, it's an interesting idea, because then it goes back into, well, what exactly defines the character of the village that you're trying to preserve? And that'll be harder to define.
We said the transient guest lodgings had to be 500 feet apart.
Okay, well, this is
But that's
something
different.
It's different, but
Let's go ahead and hear.
The rationale was the same, that we didn't want to change the character of the neighborhood.
Let's go hear from Aisha White. If you'll come forward and just introduce yourself and say anything that you want to say.
Well, hello, everybody. I've enjoyed the introduction to this conversation thoroughly, and being well informed of the other minutes on record. But my name is Asia White. I am the owner of Super Chow, the food truck. It is a soul food concept, of which I refer to as culture cuisine. And I love that we're picking up on the characterization and what makes this concept unique to the village. I've been a resident since August 2018. As a matter of fact, I am a resident on Corey Street at the GMHA properties. With that being said, I conceived this concept in 2019 when I found myself hanging out with the villagers and the townies and really getting to know the personality of this village, the heart of this village, if you will. And what's unique about my concept ties in that experience. There are certain gaps, if you will, that have niches. For example, the early morning crowd, the late night crowd. when I found myself hanging out with a late night crowd, or what some would call the riff-raff, this was during an hour where there's alcoholic consumption and there's no food available, which then increases the potential for, an adverse experience, if you will. So what I found myself doing, I found myself packing up Tupperware and giving designated rides home. I would fill the bellies of those who were empty, and they said, "Oh my gosh, this is good, you should sell it." And I said, "Wow, you've got a really good idea there." It was something that I found myself following through on. When I moved here, I lost everything. So it was, what else could I do with these hands? And I was taught to be a steward of service. I've received a lot of love living in this town, a lot of assistance as well. When I first moved here, as a matter of fact, ironically enough, I found myself eating at Miguel's every day nonstop. And when I first came up with this idea, he was excited about it. Why? Because it was something different. It's soul food. And I'm referring to it as culture cuisine because you would ask, what's soul food? It's not just black food. It's not just fried chicken and collard greens, is it? Absolutely not. My concept actually infuses superfoods. And those superfoods are the same superfoods that worked as a detox for those who may be suffering from an ailment, or in the late night crowd, too much to drink, if you will. My menu is simple, though. Although it's soul food, it has a food truck twist, making it convenient. We're talking about anywhere from your superfood soups, your superfood drinks, and superfoods are master plants. Aside from that, it's a versatile menu because it offers your catfish and your smoked brisket and your smoked chicken and your sliders and your loaded potatoes, home-cooked meals, if you will. I'm offering a menu that you can't find in this town, and I'm willing to operate at hours that no other individual who's already in business willing to operate. I have influenced the food truck restaurant platform just a little bit. I've been starting to notice. But let's speak to that, the actual fixed food trucks here. We have Miguel's, who's now returned to a food truck. He's been gone since 2020. It's been 4 years since he's been in the space that I've been occupying for the past year. Then you have Salsa Bravo. They're new. They're over at the hotel. And then you have the India Har over by the corner cone. Those are the only 3 fixed food trucks in town. I would make the 4th. Outside of that, you would find a variety of food trucks at Nipper's Corner and over at Mills Work. Those 2 locations, they have a rolling calendar. You'll typically see the same ones. Right now, we have about 3 burrito trucks in town, Miguel's, Sauces, and the burrito truck at Nipper's. Depending on what's going on over at the brewery will determine whether or not there's a food truck there at all. And then lastly, Nipper's Corner, again, you'll typically see Dad's Dogs or the burrito truck. There's new owners there now, so I have seen 1 or 2 new food trucks there, a barbecue joint, and India Jeet has been there. Outside of that, those are the only food trucks I've noticed in town. I've been surveying very heavily. But to speak to the fixed food trucks that have conditional approval to be fixed, there's only 3. In the space that I've been occupying since last September, I sat next to the deck away from Miguel's spot, which is approximately 27.5 feet. Now, in this space that belongs to the Lewises, not the Beards, it allows me to be far enough from his truck to where it doesn't interfere with his business. There's enough space for traffic, and traffic is typical. Whether it's the weekends, which are peak hours, and earlier in the week you have moderate traffic, which is walking traffic. Nor does my food truck interfere with the parking lot owned by the Beards. I have a 7x14 trailer. When Miguel started, he had a 6x12 trailer. He now has a 20-foot trailer. I also read his conditional use as well. That's not for me to speak on. As it pertains to Super Chow, though, I do believe that the space is conducive. Although it may seem a little disjointed and unleveled, there are plans to add additional gravel to level out that area. When I was parked there previously, I had no issues with stabilizing the trailer. It's fully commercial equipped, and I work part-time because I've yet to get the opportunity to operate consistently, to say the least. I pay $450 to $500 a month, and I pay taxes. So, seeing as I incorporated it 2020 and I only operated for 2 months last year, I am extremely excited to get started and serve the community, which long-term would provide additional employment for the community, those who are deserved or underserved, if you will, which I believe would eventually contribute to the affordable housing situation, you know? Why? Because I do expect for my very small platform to stay small. That's what makes makes it unique. It's eclectic, and I love the colors on it. Nevertheless, the employees on that trailer would be no more than 2 to 3, and they would make an average of $20 an hour. For someone like me who lives here, the income medium versus the cost to live, there's a discrepancy there for my income bracket. So I decided to go into business. I have an interest in joining the business chambers. I have an interest in becoming more, how would I say, active in my community, because I'll be affording myself that position to do that. I have 2 teenage boys. They're here. They've been here since elementary school. They're freshmen and juniors this year. My freshman just got adopted to the varsity team. I know that has nothing to do with this situation, but I'm excited. Mainly because we have family here and we have community here, so I'm looking to be a part of that. And if there were any conditions that I would need to meet to make this decision conducive, I'm willing to compromise.
Well, Aisha, thank you very much. I appreciate your educating us on the food trucks around, and I think it's really nice that we're aware that you're a very unique food truck and offering food that we don't have in the community that I'm sure lots of us would like to eat.
Yes.
Bringing it back.
Oh, yes.
Like the Gabby days.
I'm trying to mind my
That's what I
manners
was
right
thinking
now.
of.
Bringing it
I was
back.
thinking we haven't
We
had
used to
anything
have it.
since
Everything's
Gabby.
made from scratch. I was raised on scratch.
There will be greens though, right?
Southern raised. Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Red beans and rice
Well,
and
Southern
all.
boy here can't find no good greens up here, man.
And they'll be delivered.
Does anyone have any questions while she's up here?
Yes, please.
I believe the last time when you first were operating, you were closer like where they have the motorcycle parking?
No, it's more so situated
Or we're back behind-
alongside the deck.
Okay, so you're more around
Alongside
that
the
way.
deck.
Okay.
Yeah, further back to, there's a garden that sits right next to the deck, so I'll be sitting more so almost like behind the bushes. We're trying to figure out how to make sure I'm still seen as well. But
Okay, I
if
see.
you look, there should be some photographs in there where there's a deck and it'll show the trailer. Now, it's going to be pushed back a little further than that, and it'll be a lot closer to the left of that picture.
Okay.
And that way you have the entire middle of the
This
yard
parking
that's
lot's
still
right here.
open, and I do agree there should be more seating.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, then I guess it's time that we open up the public hearing for this. So I'm opening it. Is there anybody that would like to speak about this? If not, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Does anyone have any other questions?
Well, I guess I'd say I think I echo, or some of the questions and conversation. I mean, I assume we all had the same reaction. Like, you kind of get this thing and you're like, okay, how do we think about this systematically? Like, we know there's a one-off, but to use your example, like, what if it was 3? What if it was 4? What if it was 5? What if so there's some, it feels like there's sort of and especially having received the letter at the same time from Don, you're sort of you're asking yourself this question of how do the trucks and the brick and mortars relate, and how do we think about this? So I'll just say that the way I came to the meeting, and I think where I'm still at now, but I'm listening and trying to figure out how to navigate it, is that I'm sort of inclined to think this person didn't, like, it's not this person's fault that we don't have a systematic approach to this. I'm generally supportive of saying, okay, let's do this one, and then also saying we need to have a bigger conversation about what is our policy and how do we think about these sort of character questions and whatnot. So anyway, that's just, for whatever it's worth, I don't know if that's a question to your, when you said Susan, but that's how I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this conditional use application, and I'm wondering if there is a second for it.
I'll second it.
Great, it's been moved and seconded. Judy, would you do roll call?
Was that Scott, was that you?
Yes.
Seconding? Thank you.
And there's conditions.
Yes,
Yeah, we're-
and approving it with the 4 conditions, I think it's 4 conditions that are listed.
Yeah, let's repeat those conditions.
Okay, let's pull them.
Do you want me to go ahead and do those?
I had them here and then I moved my page. Okay,
Here we go.
they're the maintain the compliance with the Village Code, Section 1262.08(1). Any new sign will require approval of a sign application from the Village of Yellow Springs. 3, the food truck shall not be located closer than 10 feet from the existing parking lot. And 4, the owner or operator of the food truck shall provide trash receptacles and other public receptacles while open for business.
And you're okay with the second, and you guys don't need to discuss hours, lighting, anything else? You're good?
Pardon?
Hours, lighting, anything else?
I think the hours were listed.
They are listed, they are listed.
Yeah,
I'm
12
just-
to 12,
Generally,
wasn't
those are all, that
Yeah.
tend to take a look at those because I think the objection raised by the brick and mortar establishment owner was whether or not there would be interference with the brick and mortar establishment. So, generally, planning commission will take a look at the hours, whatever. But I'm just making sure everyone is good with what is here.
Yeah, 'cause pretty much all restaurants are closed by 9 anymore.
So as submitted means that the hours are these hours, that is what you are approving, so, okay.
But wait,
It's 7 days a week from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m.,
Eventually.
Thursday through Saturday.
At the beginning, yeah. It'd probably be good to, keep what she imagines at the end if her business does grow and authorize that, which is that's what I would assume, is that you're authorizing 12 to 12, 7 days a week.
Yes, because she said right now it's Thursday through Saturday with potential to expand 7 days. And I didn't see anything about lighting, so I'm assuming there's no lighting being added.
There's no lighting, and if it was, it would have to comply with the current code.
Okay,
for lighting.
okay.
So I would just add as a condition that you're approving the hours of 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. 7 days a week.
Yes.
Because it's not clear.
I see what you're saying.
do we really want to do that? Is there any other case that we've defined the allowable hours for a business to operate
Yes,
out of planning commission?
yes,
I
absolutely.
think
You always
so,
do.
yes.
Yes,
Have
you
we?
do, always.
Okay.
Yes. And look at your millworks, all of your approvals for millworks have been clear about hours because of traffic, because of parking, that's a standard.
Okay.
So, I don't know how we get this on the agenda or what we can do about it, but I agree with Gavin that,
Could we first,
Okay.
vote on this, and then we'll talk about that for new business.
So what I'm hearing, Susan made her motion with the conditions of approval as listed, adding that the approval is for 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days per week, seconded by Scott.
Yes.
Everyone is good. Okay, Greene?
yes.
Zaremski?
Yes.
Osterholm?
Yes.
DeVore Leonard?
Yes?
Stiles?
Yes,
Thank you.
okay, it's been approved. Congratulations. And I think Meg will meet with her and
Yes.
do whatever needs.
I will update this report I just send you a copy, I'll update it, and I'll send you a final copy.
Okay, and so then looking towards, I guess there's no other old business,
No.
I'm assuming. Then looking at new business, and Stephen, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so, well, I think I don't know whether we're even the right people to pin this down, but, we don't really have any sort of, guidelines for answering the questions that the comprehensive land use plan has about, maintaining the character of Yellow Springs as a small sustainable village. So, that was what was in there, and I don't know how we do that, and I don't know how many, what kind of, it isn't just food trucks, it's all kinds of other changes, but that's, we some of the things in here in the approval were that it's, consistent with the comprehensive land use plan. So, I'd like us to at least have a discussion or something.
What does that mean? Because there's nothing in the code right now telling us, oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that, for some of these things.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there was this line in here about, is it compatible with the character of the general vicinity? So, if there's potential that it may not have been, we may have decided that it wasn't compatible with the general vicinity.
Compatibility, though, it can be vague. You can argue that you're
I agree.
compatible if you're doing the same thing, but you're
Yes.
incompatible if you're doing something that's unlike anything else you have in the,
All right, I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of it. I think we probably should have a discussion in the future about if we ever going to put a limit on how many food trucks we were planning to put downtown. To go along with kind of what you're sitting there saying, see, I understand what you're saying about, like, are we ever going to put a limit? I mean, or are we just going to keep throwing them out there and throwing them out there?
Okay.
But I think what goes hand in hand with that, it's sort of like we're focused on food trucks, and there's all these other.
Well, if we get that discussion going, I think we'll probably throw other stuff in there once we just get it going.
But that's the issue that is before us.
Right, that's what I'm just kind of down. So
But
just start with it, and it can grow from there.
But it's part of the same thing.
I'm not sure if we can put the character of the town in the zoning code.
No, but there's one thing I want to point out. This area, where this would go in, there's the whole thing about a second food truck. Back not so many years ago, that area was sort of parsed out for, I don't remember, six or eight stalls, for other,
About this same area, or you're talking about?
Yeah, same area.
Saturday morning, people would come and sell things there.
Yes, yes.
So,
Well, that was in King's Yard, wasn't it?
No, is that area?
No, it's that
area.
exact same
Okay.
area. So to me,
I remember that.
it's more than food trucks, because it's like, this isn't the right word, but we're picking on food trucks, whereas there's other businesses that set up, whether they're selling T-shirts or jewelry or pottery or who knows what else, that have the same, to some degree, the same impact, that it's, more foot traffic, more people, more this, more that, more congestion and whatever.
A food truck with a noisy generator has the potential to create, to take an area and make it seem like it's become a back alley. You can create a lot of litter. You can, potentially
Yes.
get rodents and stuff.
There's distinct differences, I agree.
Well,
But
but
anyway.
pretty much anyone that's operating respectable any food business, they're going to make sure those rodents are under control, or they're going to be in health department violation. So I'm pretty sure that'll cover itself, because if it comes to us finding it, it's gone too far. Then.
Yeah, and this is not the mechanism to deal with that.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's other mechanisms in
That's the
place for
bottom
that.
Okay, well, then we will put on I don't know if we should do it next month. I mean, we need to.
Probably not next month.
Okay, then maybe the following month. But talk about,
Well, you know what? We can use
Because
not
we
next month,
have,
but maybe the following month, because that'll give other people a chance. Maybe there's something else they want to add to it, and we can just have like an open discussion like this, just part of it. Someone might find something else, and we can just talk about.
well, and it would be nice, I guess, if we have it on the agenda in the future, of having people in the community come and talk about it.
Okay, I do know that there's also very much a legal aspect to this. Comprehensive plan has a certain level of authority and not a lack of as well. So, and the terms, character, compatibility with character, general vicinity, our attorney might have some thoughts on, and I can commit to getting her thoughts on the comprehensive plan and the fact that we have a standard in it, reflecting it. It's a standard that would be compatible or in sync with the comprehensive plan. I would like her thoughts on that.
Yeah, and so we've had things happen in the village where it's, we're changing the character of the village, and if we think it's changing for the better, we have the comedy club now, we got the building that's, where Earth Rose used to be, these are, if the character of the village was that it was, partially falling down, we've changed that, so it's not against change, but we need to try and figure this out.
Sure.
Right.
So what were we committing to being on a future agenda?
We're specifically talking about food trucks.
Okay.
The numbers at different locations, And maybe we should look at, community-wide, so, and to know, like Nippers, do they have conditional use, or, I guess I'm
Well,
not
there's roll in and roll
understanding.
out, so I don't think they needed this, they didn't need that from
They
us.
didn't need
Oh,
it.
they did.
They did?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, I didn't know, because that's before my time. I just know that they come and go.
I would just like to have that general information. Who has it, like, the brewery, do they have, I'm assuming they have a conditional use?
All of them
And how
have
many trucks and,
approvals, yeah.
just all
Okay.
that. So maybe we could do that in, if not October, maybe November, when the other stuff is slowed down.
Yeah. The tap room too have a permission for a food truck? I think that's, the tap room?
Yeah.
All of them have been approved, I've looked into it, but I don't have like one sheet that has the details of, what's approved and what's lost. So I can put that together.
So
Okay.
when you talk to your business folks about this is something that I would really like to do, is could we have some way the Chamber of Commerce, something could have like a central directory of what food trucks are going to be in town on what day? Because that would be really helpful. I could plan my dinners.
Some input on that.
You know?
It did require me to do some surveying of the area as it pertains to food trucks. And Meg's right, the current locations, they do have the conditional use. Where my input would come in as a food truck vendor.
We should have you come and speak at
I'm
there, so that people at
That
home
would be
can
formal.
hear you.
That would be formal. As a food truck vendor here in Yellow Springs, a now fixed food truck vendor, as it pertains to the comprehensive land use or use of comprehensive land, if you will, I would look forward to having a lot of valuable input. I think it would be a good idea to have those other food truck vendors come in and have their input as well. What I would say in that future meeting, I would probably expound upon what I actually had to go through as far as even looking for a space to operate in town, for one. The space that I'm in, if I were to be honest, now that we're approved, I was going to look somewhere else that was still local in town, but would not be looked at as an obstruction to a brick and mortar restaurant, if you will. And I've identified that there are several locations in town that if there were to be a conversation about a food truck plot, how many food trucks would be allowed on a rolling calendar, because some of the locations like Nippers and Millworks, that's actually what they do. They only bring maybe one or two in a week, depending on what's actually going on. So I think the conversation starting there would be awesome, as far as what space is available, where the restrictions would lie, what the current food truck vendors would have to say about their experience, traffic, as well as the brick and mortar restaurants.
Yeah.
So it's worth exploring. It is.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe, Aisha, you can come back when we have that discussion. We'll try to let you know. Okay, is there anything else we need to discuss?
Agenda.
Yeah, for the next planning commission meeting, we'll have the Spring Meadows Phase 2 final plat, the conditional use for the high school remodel work, which is this 420 East Enon. They have to go through a conditional use because they're adding on and changing so much of the building.
There's that McKinley building right now?
McKinney?
They're working on?
Yeah, the middle school, high school.
Yeah. Okay.
And then assuming the people meet all their deadlines, the rezone application for the LIHTC project at the school, on the school property at Dayton and Enon, is also tentatively scheduled. And then the Old Union Schoolhouse preliminary PUD work session.
Wow, we got a
But
busy month.
those are normally held at a different, we usually
Oh, are
do an
they?
afternoon session. That is, yes.
special one?
Because it's not a public hearing, you slap everything down on a table, everyone,
Didn't we
That's for
already
the old
approve-
high school.
didn't we already
Yeah, that's
approve
where
Union Street?
YSO's going in
Yeah.
and stuff.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, what did I say?
no.
You said Union Street Schoolhouse.
Oh, sorry, no.
School building.
Student, old student.
Union-
Oh, yeah, for Antioch.
Okay.
Okay. That makes
Listen to what she meant, not what she said.
Sorry, guys.
Got it.
Yeah, right.
So we have potentially 4
Yeah.
items. Okay,
Jeez.
great.
No, the work
That'll be
session is
fun, so
not
we'll all be
coming-
prepared for a long
But
evening.
what Judy's saying is that
Bring snacks.
potentially the PUD work session, maybe we should schedule schedule it earlier in the day.
That is not a
Or
hearing.
another-
A work session is a totally different animal.
Which one is the work session?
That's PUD, work session
The
for,
Windsor Antioch building
Yeah.
would be.
Okay, that's the fourth one.
Student
So
union.
that's going to be a
So
work
this is
session.
kind of like a miscommunication on my part, on Judy and I part, because not miscommunication, but my misunderstanding, because they were asking me for deadlines, and I knew they had to have a work session with the Planning Commission, so I guided them towards this date. But she's saying that it's
No,
that.
yeah, normally, Meg says, okay, here are some potential dates, who can show up?
Yes.
And
And we
it
try
might
to
be
make
two
sure
of
we
you,
have
it
at
might
least
be
3, I
4 of
think.
you, it might be, yeah. And then that's the Planning Commission's opportunity to say, okay, well, you know what, we want a traffic study. Hey, you know what, we also want this, we want that, we want this. And then they have time to gather those things for when they actually come for the
Okay.
PUD.
So
hearing.
you're going to
Yeah.
provide us dates then, Meg?
Yeah, so then I'll send an email out with dates around that time,
Okay. Great.
yeah, for that. And so there'll only be 3 applications.
Okay, great. Well, that'll cut it down.
That's way shorter.
Okay, if there's no other business, I move we adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.